because the situation on ground is telling a different story. But again, I think the military is doing a very good job. We have to commend our military personnel who have moved in, helping to evacuate trapped Nigerians, people from Maiduguri into different places. So I saw that, and it gave me some sense of relief that at least we have people on ground who are trying to help this flood victims. Coming. So we could have this continuous episode of the dams overflowing and getting water into the community. So the flooding situation could get more intense. And it's not just Maiduguri now. Other states are also being talked about. Sokoto, Jigawa, and some other states in the northwest, the northeast. Also in the south here, people are already talking about Bayelsa, Delta, and some other riverine communities. Lagos is not an exemption, so neither is Ogun State. Also exempted from the forecast. Even in Ogun State, we have the Oyo Dam. When it overflows, it affects communities even from the side of Lagos here. All this Opi, Gareko, down to Magboro. There's this situation that also leads to heavy flooding of those communities. So we also have to check and recheck what is going on in that part of the country. But I think that, look, this is the time to now tell ourselves the real truth. We can't continue to be reactive to these things. We have to be proactive. We have to now ask ourselves, there are people who have suggested that we should conduct some integrity tests on our dams, check how secure these dams are, because again, if you look at the Maiduguri situation, people were sleeping only to wake up and find themselves in water.
Yes.
It came so fast. So it was not as if it was a gradual thing. The dam collapsed completely, the waters entered the communities, and people in their sleep, some of them are drowned in their sleep. Some of them, have to now scamper for safety. And that's the situation. But I just think that the ecological fund that is available to the government at all levels to now be deployed into a more sustainable solution to the problem. Because we are talking about 2024. I'm sure 2025 is going to happen too. The same way we prepared 2024 in 2023. So going forward, while we're dealing with the effect of what we have now, how do we now begin to work towards a more sustainable solution to the problem? That's what comes to mind for me.
All right. Well, that particular story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. This is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. We're talking to Fᴜʟᴜ. I'm Sage Babalola, and we're reviewing the Punch newspaper. We just give you an update on the Borno flood situation. In a related story, although the Guardian has a more complete reporting, and this is just a brief deviation, so we take that story all in one, that 286 inmates so far has been recorded as the amount of inmates that escaped when the fence of the prison or the correctional center collapsed due to the flood. Now, a source who spoke or who pled anonymity because they've been told not to speak to the press just yet says 3 inmates have been recaptured. So we still have about 284 thereabout at a large. And so this would not only pose the consequences of the flood is there to deal with, and now we might see an increase in crime rates because of the escape of the inmates, 286 of them.
I can imagine what will be going on in the minds of these criminals. If it's almost like this is a miracle, right?
Right.
You are held captive, the rains came, flood came, a part of the fence of the prison is brought down, and then you are let loose, you are free. So to them, it's almost like a miracle, if you understand what I'm saying. Imagine some of them would have thought that, I'm going to spend the rest of my life. I was talking about adding criminals here, because if it's Maiduguri, because again, there are other reports that have said that some Boko Haram insurgents are also kept in that prison. So would have to, because again, if 280 something, left the prisons and you have only been able to take 3 back, So another trouble for us, adding criminals on the news again, while we're still talking about the bandits, terrorists who are disturbing the north. With nature has happened, negligence, I have to agree that some form of negligence has also led to this. I've now seen a situation where some hardened criminals are now in the streets, or free, to start. I'm sure they will have to find a way to get into the enclaves of these criminals and start to perpetrate crime against the Nigerian state. But I doubt if I'm going to recover them. Remember that even when there was a prison break at the Kuje prisons, I don't think we were able to we were able to bring 10% of those that left the prison back to prison. And if you remember the last administration under 𝐴̀ᴜᴜ as the Chief Minister of Interior, there were about close to 10 jailbreaks in different parts of the country. So it is what it is. Again, that's why it's important to pay attention to these things because of the consequences that come with this kind of negligence. It should not happen again, please. That's why I'm saying that while we are dealing with the effect of what we have now, going forward, what is the most sustainable solution to this problem? It's not just to talk about it now. When the rains are over, we go back to normal. Then it happens again, we start to run helter-skelter again. That's not how to deal with things like this.
Well, like I said, that story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper if you like an update. Now, we're moving to other stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper, and we're talking about the subsidy situation. The report reads, petroleum marketers, refiners, and depot owners in Nigeria have called for the full deregulation of the downstream oil sector, seeking to end government price controls due to subsidies. The Major Energies Marketers Association of Nigeria, in collaboration with the Depot and Petroleum Products Marketers Association, the Crude Oil Refiners Association, as well as the African Refiners and Distributors Association, had a webinar on Wednesday, and they teamed it Optimizing the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry, which brought together key stakeholders from various sectors of the oil and gas industry. They had quite a lot of recommendations as to how we can ensure that we're running a liberal system when it comes to pricing for oil and gas, basically repairing the refineries, making sure domestic supply is taken care of, allowing marketers to buy from whatever source they deem fit, whether it be local, whether it be international, making forex available for those who would like to bring in the products, amongst many other things. But most importantly, their emphasis was on the fact that a subsidy needs to be removed so that that price determination system that we're using, or price fixing model, would stop. If you're paying subsidy for it, automatically you have determined the price, because when you're paying subsidy, you're able to dictate what the retail price of the product should be. So they're saying if you remove subsidy and allow the market determine the cost of the commodity.
Sage.
Yes.
All these stakeholders that have come together to come up with these solutions, these are stakeholders that are not new to the system. They've always been around, right?
Right. And
they've always had meetings and have always preferred different kinds of solutions and suggestions. But did Nigerians vote for any of these stakeholders? No. Did we vote for any of them? So who did Nigerians vote for to solve their problem?
President.
They voted for the president. And what was the campaign of the president? What did he promise Nigerians? So the stakeholders, they can continue to have their own dialogue. They can continue to, again, a lot of these stakeholders, yes, these are people who operate in the oil sector, but again, they come with all of these bourgeoisie, extreme capitalist orientation, and sometimes when I look at them, speaking all the grammar. To the average Nigerian, all these theory does not matter. What they want is the availability of the product at a reasonable price. And that was why they voted for the man that promised them Amagbewale. You don't understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because I'm not going to get into the confusion of these stakeholders. Look, these are stakeholders who themselves are part of the problem. I'm telling you. From the so-called depot owners to the major marketers to the independent marketers, these are guys who have benefited from the rot in the system. These are guys who deliberately have made a mess of something that's supposed to be as simple as it is obtainable in other standard societies. But here, these are people who have benefited from the rot. So when they keep sitting down now to continue to talk about do this, do that, deregulate, look, I've been seeing some form of tomfoolery in this conversation. As to let anybody go and buy from anywhere. Who has stopped anybody from bringing products to the country? See, remember that as at the last time, even with the PIA, that sector is deregulated, the downstream sector. But a lot of these guys who are talking about deregulation now understand that it's not in the theory. It is in the principles and practice that we have a problem. Because the so-called guys who have licenses can't even bring in anything because of the problem with forex. So it's a structural problem. So it's even more of the practice than even the principle of the issue we have on ground. But I'm not going to get, because again, you're going to have this unnecessary back and forth, deregulate, don't deregulate, remove subsidy. I've always said it, and I maintain that position. That every responsible government in the world find things that touches the most poor and vulnerable in the society to subsidize for them. So nobody is going to, in the name of an extreme capitalist IMF suggestion, demonize the idea of subsidy. I say it again, responsible governments in the world look for things that touch the poor and vulnerable in the society and subsidize it for them. Not even in a society where we have multidimensional poverty, we're going to be coming up with all of this prescription that's going to kill Nigerians. But again, I'm not going to go into that argument because it's going to come with some manner of blanket unnecessary argument, which I'm not ready for this morning. But I'm saying that, look, let's work with the promise of the president. In simple terms, 𝐴̀màgbéwálẹ̀. So Nigerians are waiting. The stakeholders can continue to speak the grammar, can continue to say what they are saying, it's fine. That's for them to sort out. But for the other Nigerians who did not vote for them, they are looking onto the president, who they voted for, to solve and fix their problems. And he promised them that, look, he talked about petroleum pricing particularly. Olomadi 200, Olomadi 500, 𝐴̀màgbéwálẹ̀. So they are waiting for the president, one, to make the product available. So as an oil-producing nation, we shouldn't be queuing unnecessarily on the street, looking for a product. And then they're also waiting for the thing to wallet, which is affordability. And a price that fits into their reality as poor Nigerians who are supposed to be benefiting from the God-given wealth of the nation. Because again, you ask yourself, what is the thing you get as a Nigerian from the government, from the God-given resources of your nation? They're going to come down and talk about subsidy is a problem, whereas in other societies that they keep pointing out, they subsidize so many things for their own people. Education, health, food, they even get monies given out to them. And that's why we talk about social safety net. We keep saying it again. We don't have the structure to run some of these IMF suggestions of social safety net. Look at what has become of the cash transfer idea. From Shadia Farouk now to Beta Edu. Look at what we've done with it. Because, look, again, when we talk about policies and ideas, what works in other places does not mean it works here. Because for every policy we come up with, we must always attach a corruption index to it. How corruption will mess it up. It might look very good, practicable, workable in other places. But by the time you look at our own corruption index, the fact that we don't have the structure to run some of these things, you have to now begin to get serious about the reality of the policies you are coming up with. And the easiest way, let me tell you today, the easiest way to help poor Nigerians who are today faced by multidimensional poverty is to reduce the price of PMA. That's the easiest way. Every other one is just story. All these rice and beans that you are sharing about, distributing money. The easiest way to touch the lives of poor Nigerians is to look at the and work around the corruption that has made subsidy a problem. But the government continues to say the government is incapacitated in fixing the problem around subsidy, so Nigerians should continue to suffer because of that. Smuggling, the government cannot deal with that. We are not sure of how much people are bringing into the country. The government cannot deal with that. Things that are refineries, the government cannot deal with that. So I've read the story. I've seen all those suggestions. Those are the normal things, almost like a cliché. Deregulate, don't deregulate. For how long are we going to remain on that? But again, I'm saying that, look, because Nigerians voted for the president and he promised them that he was going to bring it down, they are waiting for him to bring the price down.
All right. Well, that story is on page 23 of the Punch newspaper. The headline being marketers, refiners demand total subsidy removal with many recommendations as how we can manage the price of PMS in the country. Page 23 of the Punch is where you find that story. Please join our live stream on Facebook at Mainland 98.3 FM or facebook.com/Mainland 98.3 FM. We're streaming the program live, so you can watch us from anywhere you are, whether you're in transit or you're out of the country. We are available. Moving forward, the Punch reports that hunger protesters get 10 million naira bail, barred from further demonstrations. Now, Justice Emeka Nwite of a federal high court in Abuja on Wednesday granted bail to 10 activists who are being prosecuted by the federal government over the recent hunger or end bad governance protest. The judge, in a ruling on Wednesday, said he was inclined to granting bail to the defendants, notwithstanding that the federal government charged them with capital offenses such as treason and mutiny. Some of the charges they are facing is actually 6 counts in connection with alleged treason, intent to destabilize Nigeria, conspiracy to commit felony, and inciting to mutiny, punishable under Section 97 of the Penal Code. While they've been granted bail of 10 million naira each, is 10 of them. That sums up to about 100 million. And so, if they're unable to meet their bail condition, they will still be remanded. Yes, but if they meet their bail conditions, they would be released, and then the trial will continue. But again, for 6 counts, these charges are extreme charges. They are really severe charges, and we understand what the punishment for a lot of these charges are. But the judge is saying that, well, he understands that these are capital offenses, but he's inclined to grant them bail since they're arguing that they are simply protesters. So 10 million naira for each person.
Osage, like I've always said, it's strange that in a democracy we're having protesters arraigned in court for treason, felony, and all manner of grievous crimes, crimes that comes with capital punishment. You know, as I speak to you, so some Nigerians are beating themselves up in the filling station now. That's the reality of Nigeria. Everybody's frustrated. But again, we need to ask ourselves, should this be happening under a president that was himself a pro-democracy activist? You know, that's always claimed to be a progressive, sorry, and has always won the toga of a progressive politician. I think it's wrong, and I think that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has to step in on this particular one because of what has been known of him as a pro-democracy activist. You can't have protesters again in a democracy that is led by supposed quote-unquote pro-democracy activists charged with treason and then being remanded in prison. Because again, the judge has to use his discretion. Ordinarily, this kind of charges should not come with a bail, it should not be bailable.
Yes.
If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Because these are capital offenses with capital punishment. But the judge said, look, I have to use my discretion since they said they were just protesters, most likely first-time offenders. Okay, let's see. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. For 10 million for some of these poor protesters, it's going to be difficult really too. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes. I
know that they're going to struggle to be able to come up with the 10 million, whether we like it or not. So, but it is what it is. That's what we have. I'm sure some of them will still have to remain in prison to be able to perfect their bail conditions. But we'll see how it goes eventually. But these are strange times for me, really. I never imagined that we're going to get to the point where this will be happening in the democracy. Really. But there are people who tell you that, look, let them face the music. Like we always say in the streets, as comrades and activists, we shall overcome. So let's see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes indeed. That particular story you find on page, please forgive me, page 10 of the Punch newspaper. Well, while there's something of a news analysis on the front page of the Punch that I would like us to talk about briefly before we move on to the Guardian. We have how governors spent $50 billion excess crude fund, according to NESG. Now, the Nigeria Economic Summit Group has explained how state governors spent the country's $50 billion excess crude account in 2010, which would have served as a buffer for the subsidies and other pressing financial concerns of the nation. The Chief Executive Officer of NESG, Dr. Tayo Aduloju disclosed this during a courtesy visit to the headquarters of Punch. He recalled that the global financial crisis of 2007 and 2008 had minimal effect on Nigerian firms because the country had a substantial fiscal buffer in the excess crude account, which greatly shielded it from external economic shocks. However, in 2010, the state governors approached the Supreme Court to declare the excess crude account illegal, giving them the basis to share the funds domiciled in the account. Now, the federal government disbursed the $50 billion to the 36 state governors between when late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua died and when former President Goodluck Jonathan took charge. And then the depleting fiscal buffer that the country had built over a decade shifted the subsidy operation from a savings model to a revenue-based approach, forcing the federal government to fund the fuel subsidy through crude sales instead of the ECA funds. Fuad, the excess crude account was basically some sort of saving from the excess money we made from crude sales. We made excess money because crude oil prices sometimes go up. And so because we're a crude oil producing nation, we enjoy this benefit of excess profit. And so for over 10 years, we put these monies together that summed up to about $50 billion. And we were saving that. So all the subsidies we were paying and everything, we were taking it from this excess crude account. It was not affecting our own monies, the monies that we were supposed to use for capital projects. But then here comes the governors who go to the Supreme Court and say, well, we shouldn't have an ECA. They won. We shouldn't have an ECA. Give us the money. And so the money was distributed. And now we don't have any buffer whatsoever. That is why all the profits we are making now, we're spending it on subsidy. The root cause of our problems have gradually been revealed. Fuad.
Yeah, it's part of the cause of our problem. You know, because again, I remember that and I think then, if I have my information correct, I think the governors forum then was led by 𝐴𝐻 of the state. I have to check again. And they went to court really and won. And I remember then that the warnings came that look, we are supposed to have this money for the rainy day. There are going to be days when we really need this money, to serve as a common form of buffer. But they got the money then, and what happened? The rest is history. The money is gone. The governors of that era that got the money, what did they do with it? Some of them are moving and some of them are still in the Senate. Some of them are just living larger than life, enjoying themselves. Most of the money that went to the states at that time, because eventually the judgment came, the federal government was put under pressure and the money was shared. And the rest is history. Do we have any impact of any $50 billion anywhere in the country?
I doubt that.
See, it's nothing. A lot of those governors went into white elephant projects to be able to steal the money. Some of them were building unnecessary things, building airports that they were not going to run, income-completed projects everywhere. As much as we focus on the federal government, the damage that the governors are also doing at the subnational level is unimaginable. See, I know what I'm saying. When we talk about wasteful spending, profligate spending at federal level, I'm telling you some of the things that happen at the state level can just, it's better imagined. Because some of these governors too are worse off in their spending pattern, their procurement pattern, and the level of corruption at the state level. And that's why you can see that even the president is frustrated with them. That look, I'm doing my own part. I've decided to do everything. Nigerians are going through hell for me to raise revenue, for you to have enough money to go better the lives of the people. But nothing is happening at the state level. That's why the president keeps saying that, look, what is happening at the state level, the governor should also step up. But I think that the president should have known better. Now, you know the people you are dealing with now. You think you have angels at the state level, and so you think automatically every effort you do to raise more money and more revenue, these guys are going to work with it to better the lives of the people. I'm surprised that the president, with his experience as a former governor and a politician who has been actively involved in politics all this while, will make that kind of mistake. These guys are not going to do anything serious with the money. He probably just raise more money for them to be able to steal more money. So this story, and look, we are talking about the ESG account there, but even today, that look, we have this aggressive revenue drive. What are the governors doing? A lot of them are missing in action. Every time people talk about the governor of Ogun State, sometimes you see people lamenting. As what exactly is this guy doing in Ogun State? The roads are bad. There's hardly any time a picture of the governor of Ogun State is posted there. You don't see people from the state saying, oh God, what are you doing? The only thing we see you doing is attending parties and functions. And it's not just the one, to go to other states. I told Sandra, was it yesterday, also that I remember that for 8 years, Autumn of Benue State, at least somebody can correct me, never commissioned one project. Samuel Autumn. There was no record that in 8 years that he served as governor of Benue, that he commissioned any project. It's not on record. And that's what happens in other states too. Go to all these Taraba, Jigawa. You know, if you are the governor of Lagos State, you are in the eye of the storm. Everybody focuses on it. But there are some states, the governors are just there lounging. And
I don't know.
they don't. Because nobody looks at them. You know, some states are so obscure. They are just eating. Look at Taraba State, for example. I found in Taraba State. Does anybody really check what goes on in that state? And I can tell you that there's one state that is badly run, terribly run in Nigeria. It has to be Taraba State. The state of the former White Lion, who is now running. Go check and see what is happening in those states. Nothing practically in terms of governance. And so I are giving to them. No, it's not going to happen. And is it not evident that nothing is happening at the subnational level, really, practically?
Right, but there's more information about this, the activities of the governors and how all of the monies that we had saved for rainy days, the governors made it rain the next day. They made it rain because they knew money was available for rainy days. So
you remember all the funds that also work in the money they give to us is what me I'm using. You go and ask your governors. And I remember that most of the governors just kept quiet. The one of Delta had nothing reasonable to say. Governor then, what's his name? Fine Yokoa. He just kept quiet. Go to Delta State. Say, anytime fact is shared, go and check, for example, the money that goes to the Niger Delta, the state in the Niger Delta. But go to Niger Delta and ask yourself if there's anything on ground to show that huge allocation, 13%, apart from their normal fact allocation. They get the 13%. And then in that same region too, you have NDBC that gets allocation to help with infrastructure upgrade and what have you. They have the Ministry of Niger Delta. But go to that region and check whether anything is happening in terms of real governance. Despite all the monies that go to that, and not that region, it's everywhere.
I think we should.
In counting the cost, you need to ask yourself, if for each state and the monies they raise and the allocation that comes to them, what exactly are you doing with it?
Well, Fuad, I think we should have a conversation on state governors in focus, to be honest. Have conversations about these individual state governors.
You are ready for that conversation? You want to go into that conversation?
We should. Honestly, we should have conversations about it. The state governors in focus. Let's pause on the center for a bit and actually call out these governors for their bad behavior, because development starts at the grassroots level. I'm talking local, state level before we now start addressing the center. But that conversation is not today.
I notice are also governors who for years have dominated and controlled the monies of the local government. That's also there.
Right.
You know, these are, apart from their own allocation and every other money that comes to them, ecological funds, social clinical funds, all these kinds of interventions, the fact that they're also borrowing, some of them have run their states aground, they put their states in debt, collected all manner of loans. Local government funds too is under their control. And they're just there.
And then they go to the Senate when they're done.
And then that's retirement home now.
But let's move forward, because if we start this conversation, we'll be here till tomorrow. Page 17 of the Punch newspaper is where you find more details. The Punch further tells us that student loan beneficiaries lament delayed allowances. Fuad, please just let me read this and let's just move on. Okay, let's just move on. The Punch tells us that beneficiaries of the federal government student loan scheme across the country have lamented the delay in the payment of August monthly stipend. Some of the students from 6 tertiary institutions were said to have been paid a sum of 20,000 naira each as July stipends. But then students have spoken to correspondents anonymously that they haven't received their August stipend and they're quite confused. They're asking the media to speak with the federal government. Well, it's just only August.
They should speak with the Nel Fund man.
Yes,
it's just
I'm just
allowance.
quoting. That's what they're saying. That please help us speak to them and yada yada. But then it's just August that they've not been paid, and they're asking that if there can be some sort of increment to the allowance, they would appreciate.
They never even get the one. They are looking for increment.
Right, since I've got
the one they promised you have not got.
Since I've got,
you are still looking for increment. They should.
Oh wow.
Look, you know, the 20,000.
Yeah.
Again, it's supposed to be a form of stipend. I doubt if there's going to get any increment in it. But that 20,000 should be paid. That's and when due. since it's the policy of the government that they celebrated so much, at least as one of the successes of this administration. If you look at the numbers, just 20,000 plus students are on the list. We should be talking about millions, right? If you look at the number of students that should benefit. But again, there are issues with applications and the fact that even schools are not doing what they are supposed to do to get the students and the list on board the Mail Fund platform. But again, for schools who have done the right thing, for students who have done the right thing, who have gotten the stipend in July, they should get in August. There shouldn't be all of these delays. But the students are already used to it. In July, I want to know what August money should come. They're now delaying it. And there are parents who will answer. They're already getting federal government stipend. Right. So why should there be any delay? Again, structural issues about simple policies of government. It's always the reason why some of us even doubt the efficacy and the practicability of some of these things. But Mail Fund, the students are telling you, don't owe us, please pay us. And the Mail Fund man is a very cerebral man. I'm sure he's listening. He'll be reading the paper today. So I'm sure they'll get a lot this week, maybe tomorrow.
Hopefully. Well, that story is on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. Other stories here. Federal government to register untitled lands. Mpox outbreak spread to 23 states. Unfortunately, we are not rid of Mpox. And we're still dealing with our cholera cases as well. And there's been a memo about the occurrence of Lassa fever, because we're approaching the season. Usually at this time of the year, we see an increase in the incidence of Lassa fever. So
I know with flooding,
exactly.
There's a way it's now spread communicable diseases.
Rodents mostly seek to hide in residential areas, so it's easier to get Lassa fever. So there's Lassa fever advisory out there. There's cholera that we're still dealing with, and then there's
cholera
the
with flooding. I'm also looking at flooding,
waterborne diseases as well.
Disease,
yeah, so please
another
be careful.
communicable disease. So
well, page 7 of the
I
Punch.
think the what's it called, the Center for Control of Diseases should also work with SDC should work with the emergency response team, because so that some of us with flooding, I'm sure a lot would have. People are going to cluster together. People are going to live in not too tidy environments. Potable water is going to be a big problem for people in this community. So there's a lot to deal with health challenges that will come with this flooding situation.
All right, page 7 of the Punch newspaper, you find details. If we can, let's just look at the headline. INEC warns against violence as police deploy 35,000 officers. The Edo election, I think September 21, right? That's the date. Yeah, so
35,000 police officers.
Yes.
And people there's a back and forth between the governor, the IG, and the APC. I watched the governor on TV yesterday when he was speaking with General Abdulsalam Abubakar, who was there on the peace committee for all the candidates to sign the peace accord. And he lamented harassment of the police. In fact, he mentioned the IG particularly, that he has written petitions. He's tried to reach out to the IG, that he had a lot of PDP leaders who are being arrested on the orders of the IG. Well, it's an allegation, but again, this is just what it is when we talk about police. And I think this Edo election will be a major test for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Yeah.
How well the election goes, the transparency that comes with it, the fairness that comes with it will indicate really his commitment to the tenets of democracy when it comes to free and fair elections. So all eyes on Edo State to see how the president would ensure that the election is conducted freely and fairly.
Well, like I said, it's on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. We're about to segue now to the Guardian newspaper. A lot of the stories on the front page of the Guardian has actually been addressed on the front page of the Punch. So I'll just take the few stories that stand out that we haven't addressed.
The major one on the police.
Yes, that's actually the story I want us to spend the rest of the time focusing on. The Guardian reports policing amid lean resources. Federal government spends 131 billion naira subsidizing VIP protection yearly. The Riders splashes 45 billion naira on escort uniform, tasers, bulletproof vest, other kits. IGP, no going back on withdrawal of PMF personnel. Expert urges government to emulate Rwanda, South Africa, others on private security. Ubani, assigning police officers to VIP, symptomatic of a failed state. Now, behest of high inflation, insecurity, and a seemingly never-ending crisis in its petroleum sector, Nigeria appears to be biting more than it can chew yearly, with the allocation of billions of naira in VIP services. To provide security for these folks, the federal government currently spends at least 131 billion naira yearly on salaries for police officers that are designated as escort. Sadly, the VIP represents a scanty 1.09% of the country's estimated 200 million people. That implies that 150,000 of the current 370,000 police officers are assigned to VIPs and private individuals. I'd like to continue reading verbatim, but I think the first paragraph gives us an insight. So we're spending 131 billion naira to cater to the policemen that have been designated as escorts to VIPs. We have about 370,000 policemen approximately, and 150,000 of those are assigned as special bodyguards for VIPs.
That's the story again. Every IG, GP that comes into office will blow the hot air. We are withdrawing policemen from VIP. I remember there was a time that I think one of the IGPs, the past IGPs, came on TV to condemn the way police are being treated by this so-called VIP. I think you saw one of the police that was helping a VIP to carry plate of amala at the party.
Yes.
And he felt so. In fact, I think you even saw one of the so-called entertainment VIP. They will wait for the police to open the door for them.
Yeah, and
they will wait for the police to help them carry their bag. And even look, whether we like it or not, the uniform on those individuals we call policemen is a symbol of our sovereignty and the respect that should come to nations. If we have less than 400,000 policemen and 150,000 is details of VIP, you see that we are just joking. We're just joking. We have less than 400,000 policemen, 150,000. You have already attached them to VIP. We see some of our musicians have some of them 6, 7 police officers guarding one person. And the question has always been, say, these police officers that we attach to these so-called VIPs in their numbers.
What you're saying? Because,
wait now, as a Nigerian, I'm not considered a VIP, no problem. God is my protection. You understand? But the VIPs that have 4 or 5 policemen guarding them, does the Nigerian state still pay them salary to be guiding VIP?
So what qualifies
them to have?
They have to be paid.
By who?
The state.
Who pays them?
The state
pays them to guard. So me, I'm paying, for example, now, it's just an example. So I'm paying Nigerian police, 10 of them, for example, to be guarding Davido.
But I don't name drop, but then you get the job.
I'm just saying, I don't say it's but I know you have to.
They're public servants.
Public servants to be guiding VIPs who are private individuals, non-state actors. I'm not even talking about governors and public officials. I'm talking about normal guys. You understand? So what has been discovered is that, look, at the end of the day, it's almost a business for the police hierarchy. These VIPs pay back the police authorities for having this personnel. It's not for free. What I'm saying that, look, is it not embarrassing, even for the IGP and the police hierarchy? How do they feel when they see the optics, the visuals, the videos of Nigerian policemen becoming house help practically? There was one video of one woman that even beat up a policewoman that was attached to her, broke her head. Some of them, they help them carry bags, help them carry ewédú, amala. Our police officers, the uniform is supposed to come with dignity and respect as a symbol of the state. So the individual is not even what matters. It is the uniform that confers and that should confer that respect on the individual wearing it. But when you now subject them to house helps, you respond them to house helps for these so-called VIPs. Some of the so-called VIPs with questionable character have 10, 5 policemen guarding them. So when you have this hot here from the come, we are going to withdraw them. And that's why they are saying that, look at the model of, if you say America, UK are shooting, even in Rwanda, you can't find this happening there. In South Africa, you can't find it. The private security outfit takes charge of security for VIP. You pay. Go and pay the private security outfit. All you need to do is to license them to do the job. So the so-called security guys are able to carry some kinds of weapons. Why must it be the police doing this? Whereas there are serious issues of national security, insecurity that we are supposed to be using our police for. I think the governor of, is it not the governor of Katsina State now? How do you secure people? When the numbers are with the VIPs. Out of less than 400,000, about 150,000 are with VIP. Are we not joking?
Well,
whereas the private security guys can do the job. Let the VIPs, since they have the money, go and pay. The police can actually be in charge of licensing the CITO to take up the job, not to deploy a policeman to be helping people to carry bag and umbrella and then embarrass the entire nation. When they travel, they see things like that happening in other places.
Fuad, we're out of time. We have to leave the studio. Thank you so very much. That story is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Other headlines read, depreciation weakens import as trade surplus hits 6.95 trillion naira in second quarter. Local government poll, NNPP kicks as 20 aspirants fail drug test in Kano. Also, about 4,000 civil servants have been forced to retire as there's been an abolishment of service elongation term for civil servants. And so 4,000 had to retire, and about 20 aspirants seeking positions into elective positions have tested positive to drugs. The NDLEA put out their report. We have here, NCDC confirms 67 Mpox cases, 982 Lassa fever cases, and 168 deaths. That's on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. And Obaseki downbeat on signing peace accord as Edo-Guba tension heightens, also on page 6. Well, that's all we have for you this morning on Trends in the Papers. Fuad, we appreciate you for your insights so far. We're due for a break, but we'll be back at 8:40 a.m. for Mainland Focus. It's Open Mic Thursday, and you know what that means. You get to choose your focus for the morning. I'm Sage Babalola. We'll be back, like I said before, to continue the conversation. Don't go anywhere.